Ah, what a wonderful day to be in the guard. We get to fight the Tau. It looks like Psyker Skywalker is getting more blue milk because we all know Tau is blue. Oh look, another one. It makes it too easy. As long as you're not in a tank, the Tau can't do anything. What do you mean I'm being upgraded? Shit. Hello there. If you are watching this, you have been chosen to be a Leman Russ crewman. This is a Solar Auxiliary patterned Leman Russ main battle tank. As you can see, it is the superior guard tank. Just notice how tall it is. It most definitely will not make you a bigger target. The Dozer Blade. It adds extra armor, and it is perfect for burying your enemies alive in their trenches. Do you see the trench skirt? It will allow you to perfectly pass through trenches without getting stuck. Just look at this early Leman Russ prototype. And if you are special like me, you will get a flare shield generator. Who says the Tau have advanced technology? We have shields too. And unlike the flying hover tanks of the Tau, our tanks will not be swept away by the wind. You are now ready to ride with the Kriegsman. Now forward! I wish to hit them with my sword! Step 0. You want to prime your mini in Mechanicus Standard Gray rattle can. If you are going to paint that, you can. It would just take a long time. Once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and we'll start making that white stripe. Now stripes are just hard to paint in general, so you're going to just want to use this kind of natural line for your tank. As you can see right where this bolt is, it almost kind of has this natural line here, and we're going to use these sections to do those lines. This took about 2 to 3 coats to do. Next, we're going to get Mephiston Red, and we're going to go ahead and paint that middle section of the tank between the 2 white lines. Now, I like to get my brush and I like to wiggle it all the way towards the edge, and this helps make it a straighter line where your brush is dead flat on there and you wiggle it. We're also going to go ahead and paint that inner area right in here because that's really going to pop when you look at it this way. We are now going to get Iron Warriors to base all of our metal. We're going to start off painting those little auto cannons on the front of the tank, as well as those exhaust vents on the very back. I did want to keep as much painted in that gray, since if it was metal, it's most likely going to like rust and erode. So I just did selected few. Now on the Dozer Blade in the front where those little things are coming out, I did paint those metal. But way later on, we're gonna be covering that up in mud. So it's gonna be pretty hard to tell. But I decided to paint it metal just in case you don't want to do that. As well as those little attachments on the back, I painted that in metal. Now the official GW did paint that part metal, which is why I did that. But you can just keep that gray if you want. Now we're gonna use administratum gray for the inside of that little hatch thing on the top to show that the inside of the tank is gonna be that off-white, and that administratum gray is gonna look really good on there. And this took about 2 coats. For the tracks themselves, we're gonna base it in Abaddon Black. We will be doing metal highlights later, but we want that dark initial color on those tracks first. Now it is time to make it grim dark. If you want to be bold, you could just use a whole bottle of wash. Or what you can do is you could use newish. I do about 4 parts newish to about 1 part our mixed color. For our mixed color, we're gonna do about 2/3 dryad bark to about 1/3 Abaddon black or just a black paint. And you're gonna get your brush, you're gonna mix that all good and up, and then you're gonna put that on your vehicle. I like to do these little swirly motions to really get into all of those grooves. Now it says there's a drying period of like 10 minutes or so, but I would say it's considerably less, and the longer you leave it on, the darker it's going to get. So I like to do it in sections. You can get yourself a handy makeup sponge. I prefer these little circle ones for vehicles compared to these little chubby ones. What's nice about this is you can just go down, get into all those grooves, wiping it all off, and you can make it the skinny side and get into those hard to reach areas, which is a whole lot harder with these little chubby makeup sponges. So I'll get these little Terminator size based ones. Also, I did this just about everywhere on the vehicle. Now I did not do the Kriegman on top with that newish wash because it's just too hard to get off on very small and fine detail. It works a whole lot better on larger things like a vehicle. So I just use Agrex Earthshade for the mini on top. Now it is time to start cleaning up this model, and to do that we're gonna go back to the original color, which is Mechanicus Standard Gray. Now I just used a medium to a larger brush, and instead of just using a paper towel to get your excess paint off, which would probably take off too much paint in this area, I just used the paper plate, got some of the excess paint off, and then I just stipple it in on the vehicle. You want to stay away from all of these edges, and that's going to help build contrast around and make things just kind of look a little more sharp and a little bit more grim dark, and it just looks really good. I really like this step. And you're just going to just stipple it in all over. Once you do all of those general highlights, there's some areas that are going to be hard to reach. You can do the exact same thing but with a smaller brush, and you're just going to get hit all of those areas. General highlights will not be enough to make this stand out. We are gonna mix about equal parts Mechanicus Standard Gray with Dawnstone, which is just a slightly lighter gray. If you don't have that, just use some white. You're gonna mix that all good enough, and with a larger brush like you just did before, and get that excess paint off, just use a paper plate or a paper towel, and you're just going to stipple it in. You want it to be smaller sections than we just did in the previous step. That way it's going to go from dark to medium to a brighter in the center, because you got to think sun damage is going to hit it. The corners are going to be darker, and this is going to really make it just pop out. You know, boys, I've been thinking about it, and I think I know what love is. It is painting vehicles. I really enjoyed painting this. I even added a little Krieg with a transfer sheet on the barrel. I initially used Dawnstone Gray, this is exactly what you're seeing right now, to do all of the edges and light scratches on the tank. But it just didn't pop enough for me. So I went ahead and I used Administratum Gray. You want to water this down just slightly so that it goes on all nice and smooth. And with the side of your brush, you're going to hit those edges. If you're hitting the side, it's really easy to hit it all, and you kind of go through it fairly quickly. Whereas some would hit it kind of coming down, those are all those little edges that you're just going to want to hit. And this is going to really make it pop out with all of these designs with that Solar Auxiliary look on that Leman Russ. It's going to look really good. I even really focused along those edges on those little hatch doors on the side. Now, if you want light scratches, you might want to water down your paint a little bit more. You want it to be slightly watery, but not watery like a wash. This way, it's gonna be really easy to do fine lines like scratches. And I just put little scratches all throughout the tank. I just put it kind of everywhere. I love light scratches because it really looks good. Now we are not gonna be leaving these little stripes all boring and dull. We're gonna go back to that pure white. And you're just gonna stipple it in like you did on that gray part, staying away from all of the edges. And because we have some nice streaks from that newish wash already in the white, you can leave some of that alone if you want that to show through. Once you're all done with that, it's time to do them in Feast and Red. You're gonna do the exact same thing. You're going to just stipple it in the middle, staying away from those edges. And I just love how that Feastin' really just pops in the middle. It's like, boop. Now, if you want to make your vehicle look even better, we're gonna do about 2/3 Dryad Bark to about 1/3 Troll Slayer Orange. You're gonna mix that all good and up, and then you're gonna add water to the mix until it becomes almost like a wash-like consistency. Then just using the edge of your paper plate, you're gonna get that excess mixture off your brush so that there isn't just a ton of mixture that's watery on there. Once you're done with that, you're gonna go to your vehicle and you're just gonna let it seep into all of those little creases and nooks and crannies in your vehicle. And because there's more pigment to this than as if you were using a wash, it's going to show more, and it's gonna look like debris is in those little crevices. I quite like the way this looked, and it looks great. I don't know if you can see it well on camera, but it looks really good. You can also put it around some bolts. Now, I didn't show it, but if you did want to just put it on some scratches or just add some streaks throughout, I would just make a little line with it, go grab your thumb or your finger, and press down so you have some nice gradual streaks. Now, if you want this to look more like rust, I would add more Troll Slayer Orange. Now it is time to paint those tracks. We're gonna use Iron Warriors, and just with a paper towel, you're gonna get off all of that excess paint. And you're just gonna roughly dry brush over the entire tracks. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just wanna kind of get a general metal highlight on there so that when you look at it, it looks like there is metal to the tracks. Once you're all done with that, you're gonna get Storm Hoe Silver, which I've ended up to really like it. You can do the exact same thing. You can get a paper towel, get off that excess paint, and you're gonna dry brush it on the tracks. Now, you don't wanna do as much as you did with the Iron Warriors. You're just gonna tap it a little bit less, and in some areas, I really focus along those sides of those edges on those tracks, so when you're looking at it from the side, it's really going to pop. And you can just use that using the side of your brush and just roughly hitting it along those edges. Now, while you still have that Storm Hoe Silver on you, you're gonna wanna do the metal highlights on your vehicle like the auto cannons. If you want your vehicles to actually look like it has gone through the trenches, you're gonna use a technical paint like Sterling Mud or whatever you wanna use that looks like mud. And you're gonna wanna put that on the tracks. Now, I did end up using a paintbrush instead of those little sticky things that I normally use to put on bases. But for the brush, I ended up just watering it and made sure there's a significant amount of water on that brush. And then picked up that Sterling Mud and I put it on the tracks. Now, I really try to make it chunky in the early section and towards the end of the track, making sure that I get a lot of those little chunky bits on there to add texture like dirt. I also put it along the bottom and really chunked it in along those sides so that you can really see that Sterling Mud on the bottom, because this is where a lot of that mud is going to be. And then I just lightly put some along the top and made sure there's a few little chunky bits and textures on the top, but not as much as we did along the back end, the front end, and along the bottom. I also put a significant amount inside that dozer blade, really just chunking it in there, really working it in there. I really like how the dozer blade looks as well. You can also put some behind the dozer blade as well, as if it's just picking up some along some of the edges and a little bit behind. Once that's all dried up, you're going to use a brown wash like VRAKS Earthshade, and you're going to go over all of that muddy area that you just did, and this is just going to add some more depth to it. You're going to let that all the way dry, and when you do, you're going to get Steel Legion Drab. You want to get a paper towel, and you want to get off that excess paint off first. And you're going to just dry brush it all over that mud that you did. So this way it's really going to pop all over your tank. And think of this Steel Legion Drab more as mud and less like a paint. So I even just added it as highlights all over the dozer blade. I even tapped it along the side of the tank to make it look like dirt just sprayed up onto the tank. Now if you want to just try to flick it on there, I honestly just didn't think that looked great, so I just used a frayed brush, or you could use a sponge if you don't have a frayed 10-year-old Artist Loft brush. And I just tapped it along the bottom of the tank to make sure there's like little dots and almost look like there was a spray from that mud. And I did this along that entire bottom of the vehicle. Remember, it's heresy not to like, subscribe to this video. And if you want even more content, check out my gaming channel at Nuka, Kitten Gaming. I also got installation foam. And I want to make trenches for my Kriegers, but I have never done this before. So please let me know in the comments before what material, how to base it, whatever I need to do for it. Let me know in the comments so I know what to get and do.